Welcome to the session for co-teaching. Let us begin by defining what co-teaching is. Co-teaching is a vehicle to provide specialized services and specially designed instruction to students with disabilities in the general education classroom. It is when we bring two professionals together that are highly qualified that bring different expertise to that classroom. They additionally have shared instructional responsibilities and they have accountability. This instruction happens in a single classroom. Let's talk a little bit about why we should co-teach. We know that there are federal and state laws, along with policy, that requires that our students with disabilities have access to the same curriculum and rigorous academic standards that other students have. We also know that not all of our students with disabilities have cognitive or intellectual disabilities. Also, we know that all students should have access to the curriculum because they're going to be assessed. And we also know that co-teaching has proven to be effective in improving student outcomes. We are now going to take a look at the types of co-teaching approaches that are evidenced by the research with Dr. Marilyn Friend. The first one is one teach, one observe. The next one is station teaching. We have parallel teaching, alternative teaching, team teaching, and one teach, one assist. The first approach that we're going to look at is one teach, one observe. This particular approach should only be used for brief time periods. This is effective when you have one teacher teaching while the other teacher is collecting data. This could be behavioral data, it could be formative assessment data, and it could be used to collect data that would drive teacher practice and improve instruction. For example, this is what that might look like in a classroom. You'll have the teacher instructing in the front of the room, and then you have another teacher that is observing in the back of the room. Station teaching is an effective co-teaching practice. The use of this approach is when you have two teachers that both lead a group of students, while you may have a third group of students working independently. In this particular approach, students can rotate from group to group. It is very beneficial when you need small group instruction, or you need to have remediation, or you need to have a very specific lesson for teaching a skill, and it can be used frequently in the classroom. On this slide, you can see that there is an example of what this could look like in a classroom. You can see that there is one teacher with a group of students, another teacher with a group of students, and then an independent station. In the parallel teaching model, the two professionals divide students into two separate groups, and each instructor leads that same instruction with their individual group. All students receive instruction either from one or the other teacher, but not both. These groups do not rotate. On this slide, you can see an example of the teacher in the front of the room with half of the students, while another teacher is in the front of the room with the other half of the students. Alternative teaching occurs in the classroom when you have both teachers working with groups of students. You may have one teacher that works with a large group of the students, while another teacher pulls a small group to a side in the classroom that might need some special attention. Those groups don't have to be led by any particular teacher, so either teacher could work with that small group. And the groups should vary. We wouldn't want all students with disabilities pulled to the side or are always isolated, but those groups should be fluid. So it should be kids that need some skill development or some remediation, or maybe they need some additional practice. It can be used if you wanted to have an extension Or if you needed to pre-teach, for example, you needed to pre-teach some vocabulary for some students prior to starting a new story. It can be used for assessments, but the recommended use of that is only occasionally. Here we have an example of what that structure might look like in the classroom. Team teaching occurs when you have both teachers that are contributing equally to the delivery of instruction. We only recommend this occasionally for use. It can be used if a teacher takes a position on one topic while the other teacher has a different position on that. It's also effective if one teacher knows a way of solving a problem and then the other teacher has a different way of solving that problem so that students are able to see both perspectives. Here is an example of what that structure might look like in the classroom. The one teach, one assist approach is when you have one teacher instructing while the other teacher is assisting students. We know that this is probably the most widely used practice. However, research indicates that it is the least effective co-teaching approach. This can be primarily used when teachers become accustomed to working together, but we recommend that very seldomly be used in the classroom. Here we have an example of what the one teach, one assist student classroom arrangement might look like.
My name is Jacob Nichols and I am in the 4th grade at Letcher Elementary. I like having two teachers in my room because one is teaching and one can help me. I also like it because if I don't understand something that one teacher teaches, I have another teacher who can explain it in a whole different way. It helps me learn by two teachers in the classroom.
When we think about how this can happen for shared planning for those collaborating teachers, we think about the opportunities for them to plan face-to-face, but we also have opportunities for them to electronically share and contribute to the lesson planning, or we can have some on-the-spot planning, which teachers touch base with each other and they just review how that lesson structure is going to go prior to the delivery of that instruction. Now consider which co-teaching approach you might try this school year that you've never tried before. We do not recommend that you try all of the approaches at one time, but that you select one or two of the approaches that you find would be most effective in your instruction with your collaborating teacher. Try those out, collect some data about how students done, how students received that kind of instruction, and then make decisions if you're going to continue that practice or if you're going to try a different instructional practice.